Should I call the meeting to order now? Okay, so good evening. It is 6:30. This meeting is called to order. I'm Deputy Mayor Mink, and I will be chairing tonight's council meeting as Mayor Hankivsky is unable to attend tonight, and she sends her regrets. Mayor Hankivsky, along with our CAO, Mike Melanishin, are representing Port Hope at the AMO conference. And I just want to give a reminder to the council members to keep your cameras on so that everyone can see you live stream. And to staff, delegate, and the youth councilors, you'll keep your cameras off until it is your turn to speak. And then I ask you to turn them on. And I just want to remind everybody to mute your mics when you're not speaking. And now I'll ask you to please join me in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Next, I will move on to the land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as right holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. And I will ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. I note none were received in advance of the meeting, and I'm seeing none. Moving on to announcements, updates, and recognition. First, I want to welcome all of you joining us online or via telephone for this virtual meeting. We will have opportunities for engagement from the public during the public comment period and question period. Instructions on how to raise your hand virtually have been provided in the agenda, so please take a look at those. When the time comes, I will repeat those instructions again. Council members, if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please ensure you click the raise hand button and wait for me to call on you. And I will ask if any council members have announcements or updates related to municipal business that they would like to add. Oh, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody about this weekend and how exciting it's going to be, as we do have the Port Hope Jazz Festival going on. Many of the different locations actually are even sold out right now, but there are tickets for some of the different venues. It should be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get out to the United Church to see Molly Johnson, the local artist, and hoping to see everybody there.
Sounds great. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay. So next on the agenda, I now welcome our youth councillors, Leah Ferguson and Emily Mountjoy, to present us with the report to council. We will start with Emily and then Leah. And you can go ahead and unmute yourself as well as bring up your video. Thank you.
Good evening, council. I don't have much to say tonight as I was away in Trenton and couldn't attend the Arts Festival. However, I will be attending the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting on Thursday, August 21st. I would also like to speak about the traffic safety around bus stops. As the new school year starts in September, I will be taking a bus to Cobourg. At many of the bus stops, there is a lot of traffic and many students arrive at different sides of the roads. Last year, my older brother was walking to his bus stop, a car ran over his foot, and I'm unsure of the solution to how to avoid situations like that. However, I do think that's something that could be worked on, with a lot of room for improvement. I don't really have a lot to say. That's really all it is for now. As I mentioned, I was away. I can take any questions though.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very important note. The students will be going back to school before our next council meeting. So thank you for reminding us of that important message. Is there any other questions or comments from council? Oh, okay, so thank you very much, Emily, for your report. And
Thank you.
yeah, you're very welcome. And I'll ask Leah to come forward. Hi, Leah.
Hi. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. Since our last meeting, the Port Hope Arts Festival took place, which offered a variety of opportunities to meet local artists and members of the creative community. Volunteering with the 10-minute plays, which took place along Lent Lane, was a fun and interesting experience, which really showed off the community within Port Hope. The Arts Festival, which also offered numerous outdoor activities, live music, as well as a wide selection of vendors. Overall, the Arts Festival was a great to attend and welcoming to all members of the community, including youth. In 2 weeks, the new school year will begin, which will bring forth all kinds of exciting youth-related activities and school-related events, as well as meaning that school buses will be running again, which is a good time to remind the community that students walking to and from school are important to look out for in school zones, as well as a reminder that school buses will once again be active in the area. The annual Fall Fair that has been in Port Hope for 194 years is less than a month away, which is why it's important to remind you of the exciting opportunities that are available because of the fair. Fall Fair books are available at many retailers in the area, and there is lots of fun exhibits for youth to participate in. From baking to participating with pets, the Fall Fair book is also available on the Fall Fair Port Hope website. The Fall Fair is always looking for helpers, which is a great chance for students attending high school to fill in some community hours. Even if not volunteering, there are boundless fun and educational exhibits for youth to check out. I look forward to attending and volunteering at the Port Hope Fair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And is there any questions or comments for Leah from council? Councillor Adam.
So Leah, I've had the opportunity to volunteer at the Fall Fair with you for many, many years. And I'm just curious, how many years have you been volunteering with the Fall Fair?
I think 4 maybe? 3 or 4?
Amazing. And do you know where you're going to be volunteering this year?
Always at the gates.
All right, I'll see you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah, for your report. Okay, so moving on, it is now time for, oh, I just lost my agenda. It is now time for delegations. Do we have our delegate here?
Yes, we do, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Okay. All right, so we have one delegation on the agenda tonight, Andrew McMartin, regarding zoning bylaw updates to support additional housing units for properties accessed by private lanes. I now welcome Andrew McMartin regarding zoning bylaws. I ask the delegation to please share their screen and provide the presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let me just see if I can figure out my tech issues here. Start slideshow. Okay, is that working for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so thank you all for hosting and allowing us to present to council. As an introduction, my name is Andrew McMartin. I work as the founder and executive director of a charitable organization connecting children and youth to the outdoors for mental, physical, and environmental benefits. My wife, Vanessa, is an educator and an artist, currently supply teaching locally. Why we're here is to advocate for ARUs in rural areas and just a broader scope, looking at ARUs as a priority at all levels of government in trying to solve the housing crisis currently. Our goal is to ensure fair, equitable access to ARU opportunities for rural residents. So our personal story, we moved to Port Hope a few years ago. We moved onto a wonderful property, which we love dearly. On the property was a serviced outbuilding that under the current criteria of an ARU qualifies. It was structured as for agricultural use. It was an egg grading station, which wasn't a ton of use to us. So we looked at how we could make use of the building. We were initially unaware of some of the restrictions around ARUs and private and shared lanes, or fronting on private and shared lanes. After some work, fixing it up inside, just kind of cleaning it up, changing it from its agricultural use to a cleaner space. We used it for personal stays. We had friends and family come and stay, and we started to use it to generate a little bit of supplemental income to offset some of the unexpected expenses around not being able to find childcare and my wife not being able to work. Once the zoning restriction was brought to our attention, we started working with council and staff. And the problem that's been identified to us is that the bylaws are currently making it impossible for us to move forward with finding a resolution to our problem. What we've also learned is that with the provincial, county, and municipal priorities around housing, we see an inconsistency there between the limitations we're experiencing and some of the stated priorities of various levels of government. I think that our case highlights some outdated restrictions, aspects of inequity, and missed housing opportunities that I wanted to bring to light to council and try to advocate for solutions. So the larger context, to which many of you are probably well aware, as I was just mentioning, at provincial as well as county and municipal levels, the priorities, many people's priorities are in solving the housing crisis. In 2022, the province put out the More Homes Faster legislation, encouraging ARU use, and I think municipalities across the province have been trying to work on how to actually achieve some of these priorities with varying degrees of success. As the Housing Task Force has been operating, trying to look at innovations in housing solutions, different ways to increase housing stock, different ways to solve this crisis, we recognize that it's a priority across the board, and what we're seeing is that there's a gap here that we think can be addressed and potentially filled. So in terms of other inconsistencies through our process that we've learned about, when we bought the house, what we understood is that we have a shared right-of-way access, or a right-of-way access on our private lane, on Heaslip Lane, accessing our property, which is zoned rural. So permitted uses or allowable uses for rural zoning include bed and breakfast, agricultural tourism, agriculture itself. And as another example, we are technically allowed to host an Airbnb in our primary residence. What is not permitted would be to have my parents come and stay to help with our kids in a small additional residential unit on our property. So they'd be allowed to come stay in our house. They would not be allowed to stay there, regardless of the additional ins and outs of people staying on our property. We see the inconsistency, or see an inconsistency between where they are allowed to be and where they are not, which I think maybe offers an opportunity for us to look deeper. So other issues that have been brought to our attention through this process are around safety concerns. So safety concerns around access on private lanes, private and shared lanes. And what we recognize is several things are true. Not all municipal roads and not all private and shared lanes are created equal. Each have their own access or safety limitations or issues. Our lane, as an example, we've researched with the local fire chief, Jason Williams, and he has stated that if he can make it to our house, he can make it to the other building. In practice, he has no safety concerns. Whereas I think from a zoning or permitting perspective, theoretically there are concerns. So we recognize an inconsistency there. The other inconsistency that we noted came up this past winter, where I think probably many of you may, if you use Facebook at all, you probably are on various Port Hope related Facebook pages. If you took a look at the rural Port Hope Facebook page, you would have seen it various times during the winter. Dozens upon dozens of people calling for help, asking for plows, citing that they're trapped into their residence fronting on fourth line or fifth line or other various municipal roads. So these are rural properties that technically are allowed to have an ARU, but have no ability to maintain safe access to their house or their property year round. Whereas on our private lane, all 3 residents have snow removal equipment and can maintain access should that be needed at any time of the year. So that's just to say that the designation of the road or the status of the road is not interchangeable with safety or access. In terms of equity concerns, we recognize, through this process that we pay similar taxes to other rural residents, and yet we seem to have less opportunity to develop our property, to increase our property value, to generate income from our property than other rural residents. We face greater restrictions, and I think also the larger issue here is that we're one of many private and shared lanes. The reality is that I don't think they haven't been counted. Port Hope, I don't think, knows how many shared and private lanes there are in the rural ward. And so I think that's an issue that probably needs to be addressed. But also, if we were to look at our lane, 2 of 3 residences in the last 2 years have applied for an ARU. And so, that's 66% of the people that live here. Obviously, we can't assume the same percentage of people across all private and shared lanes. But, just last night I was on the rural roads map, and I counted over a dozen lanes that look to be private or shared. And I understand that there could be many more. So along those lanes, each having a number of residences, I recognize this is a larger issue than just us. There are many people across the rural ward that would be experiencing limitations that other rural residences don't. With that said, benchmarking against other municipalities. So since I created this, I have since learned that Rideau Lakes and Bluewater don't allow the ARUs on existing and private roads, even though one of the people that I spoke to from Bluewater said they do, but Saugeen Shores does. And I think they create a potential benchmark or a consideration for how we might consider expanding or reducing municipal oversight or municipal restrictions on rural properties based upon the frontage of the type of road they front on. The broader impact, really, as I said, at a provincial, county, and municipal level, I think we're all clear that housing is a priority. What I think ARUs in the rural ward can really continue to do is unlock housing supply. If there's more opportunities for this, I think it's worth looking into. And as we know, ARUs support aging in place and multi-generational living. And not just rural urban equity, but also rural equity. So like equity between our situation and other people on private or shared lanes and the other rural residents fronting on municipal roads. And I think the last point here is just about, for us, we recognize taxes are a reality. The budget is a reality. You all know that better than anyone. And I don't think, I'm sure you've heard more than enough of people saying, taxes, taxes, taxes. I'll only say, taxes going up 30% in 3 years is a lot. Certainly my salary hasn't been able to keep pace. I wish it had. I think the more realistic viewpoint here is, in us previously being having rented our ARU out or our building out to a small degree, allowed us to offset some of our costs and bring in money that makes increased taxes much less of a burden on us. So, the reality is taxes are going up because the budget requires it. But what can we do to allow residents to income generate to be able to pay those taxes without it being a burden that is very difficult, if not impossible, to match with the rate at which salaries increase? So in conclusion, I'd just like to say that, the urgent need for more housing is well established. Provincial, county, and municipal priorities all identify it as a crisis and call for action. ARUs offer a low impact solution and are already prioritized by Ontario's government, yet many rural residents remain excluded due to limiting blanket style zoning restrictions that can't consider specific solutions for specific problems. At the same time, tax rates continue to rise sharply, and the municipality has an opportunity to help residents meet these financial pressures by enabling modest income generating uses of their properties, ARUs being a potential solution. On our own lane, which I mentioned, 2 of 3 households have already applied for ARUs. This is not unique. Obviously, there are many other private lanes across the municipality, with many more likely uncounted. And I think in the end, these limitations are also compounded by the municipality's approach to the sale of roads to private individuals, transactions that seem to leave neighboring residents subject to access restrictions, diminished property rights, and unequal treatment. If we are serious about housing for all, it seems to me that the time might be now to stop focusing on why we can't and begin addressing how we can. We're asking that council specifically consider expanding the scope of the zoning review related to ARUs proposed in the last council meeting. We would like to see this become a more comprehensive review of ARUs across the entire municipality, including process considerations to increase specificity in application requirements for ARUs that could replace blanket style prohibitions. The second ask is, I already mentioned, but really just how can we shift our design, shift our approach to empower the staff professionals in more of a how can we approach versus why we can't approach. That's all from me. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully I didn't go over time there. Thank you for your consideration.
Hey, thank you very much for the presentation. I will open it up to council for any questions or comments. And I can't see, okay, there we go. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? And I'm seeing Councillor Less.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Couple questions. First of all, thanks for your presentation. It was very well done, and there's a lot of good content in there. When you applied for your building permit for the ARU or the renovations of your ARU, were you not informed of the restrictions on the private lane?
The story there is a little longer, which I knew I had only 10 minutes, so I didn't expand on all of it. But initially, when we looked at this building as an opportunity, we made some assumptions because of the services that we're already in, as well as my wife went into the building department and asked some questions specific to permits. And some of her questions were about Airbnbs and rentals, wanting to ensure that we were not going to be doing anything that was not allowed. Some of her permit questions, I think, were interpreted solely as Airbnb related, not permit around the building itself and some of the work we wanted to do. There were no questions asked back and forth around the building itself in question and what work we were doing. So I think in the end, there was a series of miscommunications that led us to believe that we had done our due diligence and that we could proceed. I mean, I did all the work. It was very simple work on the just finishing and cleaning up the interior. I didn't know and didn't think that we needed a permit, so that was part of the problem. We missed in communication there with the building office.
The other question I have is, how did this come to the municipality's attention? Like, did you operate for a period of time and then there was
yeah,
something
so-
that triggered?
Yeah, so it came through a civil issue with our neighbors. Our neighbors didn't, I don't want to repeat what I was told because it would be offensive to many, but our neighbors didn't like the idea of different people from the city coming and staying near their property on our property. And so when that started happening, they started complaining to every department they could until something stuck. I believe they reached out to counselors, permits.
Sorry, I just want to jump in. I don't want to get too much into specific details, especially as it pertains to neighbors and so on. I want to look at this more as in general, as you presented, which was ARUs on private lanes. I just don't want to get too specific and draw particular people's names potentially, if that's okay.
And the only other question or suggestion I have is, I wouldn't mind hearing from staff as to their take on this.
Can I just go ahead with Councillor Clare's comment and questions first, and then ask for staff because there could be some overlap. So I'll just I saw that Councillor Clare had her hand raised, and then if there's no other questions from council, then we'll ask staff to weigh in.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Clare.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate the presentation, and I'm a little bit reticent of going into too much debate this evening, including sort of getting advice from staff on the issue at this evening's meeting. I think we went down this path in response to a similar delegation just over 2 years ago regarding a specific prohibition in the zoning that was preventing a particular kind of housing, infill, ARUs, and that. And we passed a motion on the fly after a lot of exchange between council and staff. And I'm just conscious that that didn't really work out well. It ended up taking two years to come to resolution. And I think there was some confusion about what the council resolution ended up saying. So I am interested in looking at this and having staff take a closer look and provide some more advice to council on whether the provision could be removed or whether instead of a blanket prohibition, it could be more specific, so we could be clear about what the risks or concerns are. But I would like to reserve that consideration to September to allow us all to do a little bit more research and consult with staff. I did also want to note that the report we reviewed last month that was referred to in this delegation was a report that came forward with recommendations on the basis of that council resolution from 2 years ago. And as I've been reflecting on that staff report, I also have had the thought that it was based on what we knew 2 years ago about the barriers to ARUs and infill housing. And there are clearly other barriers that we were not aware of that we didn't cover in that resolution. So I think it might behoove us to take stock of that and see if there are provisions like this one and maybe some others that we want to add to the list of issues that staff are going to review and come back to council with concrete recommendations on how we can remove barriers to ARU development in both the rural and urban parts of our community. So thank you to the delegation for bringing their particular concern forward and for linking it to those broader policy goals and that strategic priority of housing and infill housing in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Clare, and Councillor Todd.
All right, thanks very much. And Andrew, thanks so much for your delegation. It was really well done, and I appreciate you coming forward with this. I agree with what Councillor Clare is saying, because I think, I guess my comments are more to council than it is to the delegation, but I think what's being raised here, although obviously is very personal to the McMartins and specific to their property, it does sort of shed a light on the fact that there might be something a bit more systemic that council needs to look at. And I think this is a conversation, for later with the help of staff to figure out, what is our intention around ARUs. How do we, what position do we want to take on, the use of some of these shared lanes? It's a bigger conversation that I think we have to delve into, and we're going to be needing information from staff and possibly from legal, but we need, I feel we need some information in order to make some of those decisions. So I agree, and thank you, Councillor Clare, for raising that and reminding us of the situation before when we started doing some directions from our bench and didn't quite get where we wanted to be. So I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other comments from the rest of council? Okay, so I'll weigh in and then I'll ask Desta to come forward. So thank you very much for the delegation. And being a rural resident myself, I know that there are some tricky locations out in the municipality. I also want to recognize that we are on the fringe of the urban area, the urban sprawl coming this way. And with knowing that we'll have more and more people wanting to live in this area and commute to employment and things like that. School and other services. We're very close to that. So I think that we need to really start thinking about how we can have goals to achieve an increase of housing and ARUs in our community and not just sit and wait for them to happen. We really need to start thinking creatively to really promote them and encourage people to have them on their properties. And I recognize that some of them are very tricky. There's legal requirements for different shared lanes and agreements and so on. But I also want to avoid us getting too specific into those legal matters. That's what there are real estate lawyers for when you purchase your property and that type of thing. So with that said, I agree with what Councillor Clare said about opening up the discussions that come forward regarding ARUs and how can we make it more possible, more accessible, and to the people in our community to have these opportunities at their homes. So I will open it up to Desta to maybe answer some of these questions, as well as maybe how it relates to the report that was brought forward at the last council meeting, and potentially how we can move forward.
Thank you, and through the chair, I'll start by saying that I do agree with Mr. McMartin's assessment that from a municipal perspective, we do need more information on the prevalence and locations of all private lanes across the municipality. Unfortunately, we don't have that data set right now, and I do think that it's important in terms of even looking at taking the next steps to reviewing and considering changes to existing regulations to really understand the existing context that we're working within across both the urban and rural area as it relates to private lanes or private roads. So with that being said, staff are working to prepare a report to address Mr. McMartin's delegation that you received today. And really what we're looking at is how Mr. McMartin's request could be addressed while considering the existing work plan that staff have established for the remainder of the year and, in looking forward into next, and also what considerations would go along with the request that was, being heard tonight at tonight's delegation. So I will say that staff are actively working on preparing a report and more information on future considerations for council, and that we hope to have that report prepared by September's regular council meeting. So I will say that we do hope to provide more information from a staff perspective and review the delegation in the form of a report.
Thank you. So I just have one follow-up question, and this just came to me as you were speaking and as the presentation came forward. When we talk about the risk for fire and emergency access on these private roads, and us not having an inventory of all of those homes impacted, as it stands right now, what is the risk of us not knowing if there is an emergency call? And we don't know if that particular home, regardless of there being an ARU on it or not, people can rent their houses, people living in homes may not be aware if they're not the owner that this is a private road. Are they at a risk right now in their homes if we don't know which roads are privately owned and which ones are not from an emergency point of view?
That's a great question. I would rely on Director Williams to assist in that answer, and just understanding how fire and emergency service currently, and what we would be looking at doing is really converging with different directors to understand if they have information that in their services that could assist us with compiling the information that planning and works and engineering has as it relates to private roads. So I hesitate to speak on the risk, just as it's really not for me to say right now. And I would be looking to Director Williams to assist me with providing that response in a following report in September. But I will say that we would certainly be working at collaborating and trying to help find more information about these private roads, hopefully through information collected through fire and emergency.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions from council at this time? Okay, thank you. And thank you, Desta, for those answers and additional information. So the recommended motion identified on the agenda is to receive this delegation for information. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Thoms, seconded by Councillor Clare, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And next I'll move on to, and thank you once again to the delegates for your presentation. And I will move on to the public comment period. It is now time for public comment period. As per our procedural bylaw, the purpose of the public comment period is for members of the public to provide comments on items that are on today's council agenda. If you have questions related to an item that is not on today's agenda, please wait until the question period, which is later in the meeting. I request that you keep your comments brief and respectful. I also remind council members that no questions or comments can be directed to those providing public comments tonight. As we are conducting this meeting virtually, we will have a slightly different approach to public comment period. Instructions on how to raise your hand virtually are noted in the agenda, but please click on the raised hand button if you wish to provide a comment. If you're on the phone, press 9 to raise your hand so that we can call on you to provide your comments. Please remember you have 2 minutes to make your comments, and I will ask the clerk to assist us with managing public comment period. So if you have any comment, please make it known now.
Madam Deputy Mayor, we currently have 7 attendees who have joined us via the public link, and I do not see any raised hands at this time. We can give them about 10 more seconds to see if anybody decides to raise their hand.
Okay.
I do not see any raised hands, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will move on to correspondence. So 7.1, Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness regarding next steps for advancing recommendations from Housing Solutions Workshop findings and recommendations report. I'll ask Councillor Clare to introduce the correspondence.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is correspondence that is partly a mea culpa on behalf of Todd and myself, in our capacity as co-chairs, we were so focused on our delegations to all of the other 6 lower tier municipalities in the county that we forgot to get ours into Port Hope in time for our July agenda. And given that our CAO is not here, and nor is the mayor, we didn't feel it would be the right timing to have that delegation today, as the recommended motion that's coming from the task force does involve the CAO, plus the other members of the task force who would have stepped in for us to delegate to our council are also at AMO this week. So really the purpose of the correspondence is just to give you an FYI that we will be having a delegation in September, and so that nobody panics when the resolution references October 1st, which would obviously be a very short turnaround. I have had the opportunity to meet already with Desta, our Director of Planning, about that resolution, and she's well aware of what's being asked and is prepared to move forward on that. So this is really just an FYI, and stay tuned for the delegation next month. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. With that being an FYI, I'm assuming you're not looking for a mover and a seconder for anything at this time. Okay.
Sorry, Madam Deputy Mayor, we would need to receive the correspondence for information.
Okay, so we will receive the correspondence for information. If I can have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Adam, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is received unanimously. So moving on to the consent agenda, adoption of minutes. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion. Council members may request that specific items be removed for separate discussion, deliberation, and action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. Would any member of council like to remove any of these items for separate discussion? Okay, so then I will ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Clare, and I'll ask all in favor. And that is, sorry, I can't see everybody. Les, did you have your hand up? I couldn't see you. All right, so that's passed unanimously. Moving on to the consent agenda, advisory committee and board meetings. Would anyone like to remove any items under this consent agenda for separate discussion? All right, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Clare, second by Councillor Adam, all in favor. And that is also carried unanimously. And items for consideration tonight, report CS-14-25 regarding the status update on audio-visual upgrades in the council chambers. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this item?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This is my report, and it is essentially an update to council as well as the public with respect to the AV upgrades that are happening currently in council chambers. This is a very important project for the municipality, and we have been working diligently in order to ensure that these changes are taking effect as soon as possible, but are also being mindful of the fact that we have to be aware of the heritage aspects of the building and be responsible stewards of the funds that we have received. So we have awarded the contract to an excellent vendor. They have already removed a lot of the equipment that is currently there that is outdated and end of life, and they are moving forward now with installing the new equipment, and that should likely be happening in September. So we are moving quite quickly, and we are moving in line with the timeline that we had set forward when the initial report on this project came to council in April. So we do anticipate full use of that room starting in October. But in the interim, we do also anticipate that meetings will continue to be virtual for council as well as committee of the whole or special council for the month of September. I do want to note also that I have been advised of some misinformation that is in the community with respect to the virtual meetings that are taking place, and there has been some misinformation with respect to the fact that these meetings are being held virtually and that is a permanent move, and that is absolutely not the case. We are holding meetings through our virtual platform in accordance with the procedure bylaw for a temporary basis until the work in council chambers is completed, and we have full access of the audio system, the live streaming capabilities, as well as the projector screens and all of the other changes that we're going to be bringing forward in that room. So I do want to note that this is not a permanent thing that we are doing. We are going to be going back in council chambers once that room is ready to receive council as well as the public. But I do ask for patience from council. I ask for patience from the community. As I said earlier, this is a very important project. That we want to be responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollars that we have received in order to bring this project to fruition. We want to be responsible stewards of the heritage building in which we are operating. So we are working very closely with our vendor to make sure that we are, implementing a solution that's going to work for us for many years to come. And if people do have questions about the way that the project is unfolding, or if they would like to ask any questions about the virtual platform that we are currently using until the end of September at the very least, I really urge you to contact the Office of the Clerk, and you can contact us either by contacting our phone number, or you can email clerk@porthope.ca, and we are happy to provide any information that you need. So this report is in front of you, Madam Deputy Mayor and members of Council, as information for the status of the project as it stands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any comments or questions from members of Council? Councillor Clare.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Madam Clerk. I have a question about the nature of the tech that we're getting. I think when your last report, it wasn't quite sure because it was partly going to be based on the vendors that bid on the project and what they proposed in the budget. But now that you've selected the vendor, could you give us a little sneak peek about what we'll see when we're back in chambers in October?
That's a really great question, Councillor Holloway-Woodwani. I do want to start with a caveat that I am not a techie person per se, so I may not be able to get all of the words right, but I will say that I am extremely excited by the solution that has been presented by this particular vendor. Maclean's Media Systems is the vendor that we have selected. They are well respected. They have done work similar to this for over 30 different municipalities, large and small. So they have a very strong understanding of the needs of our council members, of our public, as well as for staff. The solution they are presenting, as I understand it, is turnkey. They're going to be using a system where we're going to be able to manage audiovisual from one centralized location, a tablet or a laptop, and then we're going to be able to not only be able to see council members on the live stream. The people who are viewing the live stream will also be able to see, what is being presented. There's going to be functionality for hybrid meetings as well. So, for example, if there are, council members who are unable to attend a meeting for some particular reason, either they're away or perhaps they're not able to get to council chambers, they will still be able to log on to attend a meeting virtually. The same goes for staff members as well. And it'll also be an option that we'll most likely be offering to our delegates as well as to consultants. It's going to result in some significant cost savings for the municipality, especially because if you think about, consultants coming from different parts of Ontario to in person to present to council, now for them to be able to join virtually would result in some cost savings in from that aspect as well. We will likely have to be updating our procedure bylaw, just to reflect some of the changes that we will be making with the hybrid meetings. But that is a report that will be coming forward, before the end of this year. And right now, the way that we have included the language in our procedure bylaw gives us quite a degree of flexibility. So that's all I do feel comfortable sharing at this point, Councillor Holloway-Woodwani. But once we have more information, I'm happy to give council a tour so that they see what it looks like.
Thank you. So I do have sort of a comment or a question. You might already have covered this and I missed it, but two things that I hear most from people is that they cannot see the presentation and they cannot see the people's faces as they're talking, and seeing people's faces as they're talking as well has an accessibility component to it, because there are people who lip read and so on. So I'm assuming that those will be key features in the new platform.
Absolutely. So one of the really exciting parts of this functionality is that there will be multiple cameras that will be in the room. So as people are speaking, they will be connected to their audio, and then so when the audio is triggered when a person is speaking, the camera will automatically zoom to that person so that their face will be very clear. So it won't be as it is right now, where it's just the one camera showing everybody at the same time. In this case, there will be multiple angles as well. That goes for delegates. And then to your point, Madam Deputy Mayor, the presentation will also be available. We'll be installing more than one screen as well. So that will be something that I think a lot of people will appreciate, because there's not just going to be the one screen in one corner. We're going to have more screens so that people from all angles will be able to see them, and the screens will be of significantly higher quality as well.
That's great. Look forward to it. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so the recommended motion is to receive this for information. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Todd, and all in favor. And that is carried unanimously. So moving on to committee reports and recommendations, I have none. Notice of motions, there are none. Bylaws, consent agenda, there are none. So it is now time for question period. This is your opportunity to ask brief, direct questions to council members about matters of municipal business. Please remember, this is not a time to ask questions of staff. Operational questions should be directed to staff after the meeting. Please email clerk@porthope.ca if you have operational questions for staff, and the clerk's office will put you in touch with the relevant staff member. Keep your questions concise. Long preambles or commentary are not appropriate. Simply state your question clearly and directly. Before speaking, please state your name and ensure your microphone is on. Similar to our public comment period, as we are conducting this meeting virtually, we will have a slightly different approach to question period. Instructions on how to raise your hand virtually are noted in the agenda. Please click on the raised hand button if you wish to ask a question. If you're on the phone, press 9 to raise your hand so that we can call on you when it is time for you to ask your question. And I will also ask the clerk for some assistance in this step of the agenda. And if you have a question, please make it known now.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So we currently do have 3 attendees, and we'll give them about 10 seconds in order to raise their hand in the event that they have a question. I do not see a hand raised, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. So it is now time for the confirmatory bylaw. This bylaw confirms the proceedings that took place this evening and provides for formal adoption through a bylaw. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Clare, seconded by Councillor Adam, and I will call all in favor. And that is also carried unanimously. And so this concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda. We have reached the end of our agenda for today, and I'm in a position to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, and have a great night.